What up, guys? Unfortunately, I don't have any hunting footage for you today. I was supposed to go hunting after work, but unfortunately I got off a little later than I expected. Had my bow in the truck, had my gear, thought, why not stop at the archery range on the way home from work? And that got me thinking I should maybe make a video with some tips and tricks about mid-season archery practice. Because the one thing I want to point out is that I have this whole range to myself today. It seems like as soon as the season starts, every bow hunter quits going to the range. And I don't know why, because archery, the one thing in archery that is so important is consistency. So if you quit going to the range as soon as the season starts, I don't see how you can expect to have the same sort of performance when you're shooting. And that's just a disservice to yourself, because you've spent all this time over the summer and the past year practicing and trying to get ready for season, and then you stop as soon as the season opens up. You're just not gonna have the same kind of performance you had, say, in mid-August when you'd been shooting every day for the last 3 months. So today I want to give you a few tips and tricks on, how to stay consistent and a couple of unique things that you should be practicing throughout the season. So stick around and let's do some shooting. The first tip I have for you is to shoot in what you're gonna wear. Now, I totally understand throughout the summer, you're not going to want to be shooting in your jacket or your vest or your gloves or warm hats. It makes sense. You should always be shooting with a harness if you're going to be carrying one throughout the season, because it will make a difference in your shooting having this on. But I think the most important one I notice most people don't ever practice with is their gloves. And I find that where the difference between me shooting with gloves and without gloves is pretty significant, especially on my release hand. I have that feeling, I have that certain grip on my release, and when I wear a glove, that changes. It really feels different in my hand, and it does take some getting used to shooting. Now, obviously in the early season, I'm not hunting with gloves on. I wait till it gets colder out. But as soon as it gets to be getting colder out, I'm switching to gloves and I'm practicing with them. My second tip to you guys is to shoot your broadheads. Now, we've all heard it. Some guy shoots all summer. He's grouping pop cans. He is dialed. First deer he shoots of the season, arrow's 6 inches off. You know why? It's because he didn't shoot his broadheads. And a lot of people are gonna say, well, I don't like to shoot my broadheads because I don't like them to get dull, or I don't want them to break or whatnot. Doesn't matter. You should be shooting your broadheads. Learn how to sharpen your broadheads, or dedicate one in the set to being a practice head, and buy extra blades. There is no excuse for not shooting your broadheads. They really do fly differently than field points, even if your grain count is the same. It is so important to be shooting with them, and not just onesie twosies. You have to be shooting them consistently, especially right leading up to the season. Otherwise, you're just not going to have a feel for how these arrows are going to fly when you put something that could be up to a 2-inch wide wing on the front of it. My third tip for you guys is to shoot while sitting. So many times we practice shooting from a standing position throughout the year, throughout the whole summer, and we're getting really tuned, really dialed, and we go sit in a tree stand for the next 3 months. It changes the way you shoot, it changes the way you draw. You need to be aware of it. I'm not saying give up on standing shots completely. Obviously, you're gonna take a lot of those too. But it's important to have a feel for how your bow draws when you're sitting and where your body needs to be positioned, because it does change your shot. And it definitely changes your draw cycle more than anything. In addition to sitting, shooting from a kneeling position is also helpful, especially if you plan to be hunting from the ground a lot, or stalking into positions. A lot of times you're just not going to be able to stand up above your cover, and this is going to be your only option. Tip number 4 for you guys is to shoot elevated. We want to recreate what it's like to shoot from a tree stand, or if you don't have a range that does this, it's best just to hang a stand in your backyard and go for it. This is really going to change the angle of your shot, and it's important to know how the arrow is going to react going from that steep dive versus a flat shot where you'd be normally shooting at a range. I just want to show you guys how steep of an angle we're shooting at here. If you line it up vertically next to the target, you can see where the arrows start and where they enter. Drops almost 4 inches by the time it would be passing through an animal. So it's important to know your shot placement when you're in a tree stand as well. Just because that arrow isn't going straight through the animal, it's actually coming down and exiting lower. My final tip for you guys is practice shooting in low light. So you can see the lights are on in the utility building, sun has set, light is fading. This is something that gets overlooked all the time by hunters. They never practice in that half hour after sunset, and it can bite them in the actual hunt, because that is where we see a lot of deer movement. Well guys, that's all I got for you today. We'll be hunting this weekend for sure. Hopefully we see something. Remember to like and subscribe. That really helps the channel out. And keep practicing, man. Keep going to the range and shooting. You'll only get better.